hold on to your seats because we've got some huge updates coming out of Canada that could completely change the political and economic landscape of this country. And it's happening faster than you think. We are talking about Alberta possibly breaking away from Canada and the looming tariffs that could crush Ontario's economy. A lot are wondering if this could be the beginning of Alberta's push for independence or even statehood. With President Trump announcing hefty tariffs and some major political moves happening, the question on many people's minds is, could we see Alberta separate from Canada? More importantly, what does all of this mean for the economy, especially right here in Ontario? First things first, let's talk about Alberta. The idea of Alberta becoming independent has been floating around for quite a while now, and with recent developments, it's really picking up steam. Alberta, with its vast oil and gas resources, has long felt like it's not getting a fair share from the federal government in Ottawa. They feel like they're subsidizing the rest of the country, especially through the equalization program, where billions of dollars flow east every year, leaving Alberta with a feeling that their tax dollars are going toward places that don't contribute as much. Now, with the news of tariffs and the potential for even harsher economic policies from the US, Alberta might feel even more isolated and vulnerable. If they go independent, they could gain control over their own resources, taxation policies, and avoid being subject to federal regulations that they see as limiting to their economic growth. They might even look to the US for a possible future relationship, maybe even a state, where they could leverage their conservative values and resources. That's something a lot of people in Alberta are seriously considering. But here's the thing, I'd hate to see Alberta go. The potential for separation could tear apart the fabric of what makes this country great. While it's understandable that Alberta feels frustrated with Ottawa's policies, I believe that there's a better way. Now let's talk about the big issue here, the tariffs. President Trump recently announced a 25% tariff on automobiles that aren't produced in the US. We all know this by now. This could have a huge impact, not just on Alberta, but also on Ontario, which has a huge auto manufacturing industry. Ontario is home to some of the biggest car manufacturers in North America, like GM, Ford, and Chrysler. And these tariffs could hit hard. So what does this mean for Ontario? Well, in the short term, Ontario could see a significant downturn in the auto industry. With these new tariffs in place, it's going to make it more expensive for Canadian-made cars to compete in the US market. The US is one of Canada's largest trading partners, so these new tariffs will likely lead to higher costs for both Canadian manufacturers and consumers. That means that Canadian automakers might face cutbacks in productions, layoffs, or even relocating manufacturing plants to the US to avoid the tariffs. This would obviously really hurt Ontario's economy, which relies so heavily on its automotive sector. Moving production to the US to avoid tariffs may sound simpler than it is. This process, it is far from straightforward. Establishing new manufacturing facility involves significant investment. Costs include land acquisition, construction, machinery, equipment. For example, setting up a plant can require several years of planning, financing, and process mapping. Starting from scratch means dealing with legal requirements, workforce training, and establishing supply chains, all of which take time and resources. I think one of the biggest risks with this is that the already present manufacturing plants could just simply ramp up their production from their current capacity And that is something that is more feasible and much quicker to implement. But that's not all. Tariffs could also lead to higher prices for the average consumer. When tariffs are imposed, companies often pass the added costs onto consumers, making everyday goods more expensive. Imagine the price of vehicles and other products manufactured in Canada going up across the board. This could lead to inflation, putting more financial pressure on the middle-class Canadians who are already facing rising costs for housing, gas, and groceries. Not to mention, any disruption in Ontario's manufacturing sector could also lead to a loss of tax revenue for provincial and local governments, putting a lot of pressure on public services. If the US and Canada escalate this trade war, other industries could get caught in the crossfire. Think agriculture, technology, even natural resources. Ontario, with its trade links to the US, could see ripple effects across other sectors, leading to job losses, higher costs of living, and economic instability. Okay, back to talking about Alberta and why I think Ontario and Alberta need each other. I get that Alberta is frustrated, but these tariffs are hurting more than just Alberta. They're hurting the entire Canadian economy, including Ontario. The reality is, the economic health of Alberta and Ontario are intertwined. Alberta's natural resources and energy experts are crucial to Ontario's industries, and Ontario's manufacturing sector provides significant amount of employment in Alberta. That's why Alberta staying in Canada makes sense, not just for Alberta, but for the whole country. If we want to maintain strong economic ties with the US and keep our economy robust, we need to work through these challenges as a united front. A divided country just makes us more vulnerable, and external pressures like these tariffs, especially when countries like the US start picking winners and losers. Look, separation is not the answer. It would only serve to weaken the country as a whole, and ultimately it might hurt Alberta more than it helps. These tariffs are a major concern, especially for Ontario, and we need to keep fighting for a fair deal with our neighbors to the south. All right, guys, that is all for now. But if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any future videos. Let's keep up with these changes together. Thanks for watching.